10 o'clock. February 13th, 8085 West, 3500 South, General Office Building. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to welcome public and guests on our board today. I'm going to recognize Raymond in the background, Raymond Mondragon, Trevor Andre, Dallas Henline, Steve Clark, Andrew Sumptions, Jeff White, Danny Stewart, Leal Fitzgerald, Nathan Bracken, and Clint Dilly. Let's see. Salt Lake County, you have some comments for us. Can you come up, Tracy?
Yes, I know it's unusual that Salt Lake County is showing up at a water district meeting in Magna, but I represent the Meals on Wheels program that is being widely used by residents in Magna. And I am interested in just getting the word out that we want to get more volunteers from Magna to be a community route, because it is really essential for residents that are getting Meals on Wheels to have someone checking in on them every day. They are homebound, they don't get out, and this interaction is really important for their well-being. We have probably 50 different areas of Magna that are getting Meals on Wheels delivered to residents, and they are all routes that, you know, get picked up at a certain place. And so I'm interested in attending everything I can in Magna to start getting the word out so that the community can be involved in helping the residents of Magna. Like I said, I know it's unusual that I'm here, but I worked at the Magna Senior Center for years, and I have a great fondness for Magna. So when my staff said I'll go out to Magna, I said no, I'll go out to Magna. I feel like I know the community pretty well. When I was out here, I was doing a lot of work in the community. So I just appreciate your time, and I will hit all of the, if you go to other meetings, you may, I know Dan and Danny very well. You might see me at other meetings, because I am trying to help those homebound citizens of your community have a contact with a person every single day, and it only takes 6 or 7 people to be over around. It is an hour, less than an hour a day. If you were to do it once a week for a month, that would be all the time that it would take. So my information is on my cards, right, and I can leave those. And I also you'll probably see some of my flyers around town, because a few places and businesses have already said that they'd put them up. So I'll provide these if anyone's interested. And as long as you know what's happening with Meals on Wheels, that's all I really want you to know. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy.
So is there any conflict of interest that needs to be disclosed to the board at this time? Okay. I'd like to move with the approval of common consent items. Minutes of the regular board meeting held January 9th, 2025.
Jeff, I just have one edit to those
Oh,
minutes.
I didn't see, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the minutes list me as being excused, but I was at the meeting, so I would just request that the minutes.
Oh,
be
I'm
approved
sorry.
with-
Yeah, Mick Sudbury is, just called. He was in the hospital yesterday, and so he asked to be excused today. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I was talking about the reference in the minutes to me being excused.
Oh,
And I was at the meeting, so I'm just asking if that section of the minutes be revised
We'll make that change.
before you approve it. I hope Mick's okay.
it had you in the minutes that you were there.
Yeah, it does, but it says at the end of my name, it
Excused
says
under,
excused.
yeah.
Oh, okay. And so noted. So, minutes of the regular board meeting held January 9th, 2025, with the additional change.
You want me to read these?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll second them.
Okay, go ahead.
Minutes of the regular board meeting held January 9th, 2025. Expenses for December 30th to 2024 to February 4th, 2025. General expenses, $1,676,776 and $666.06. Science Bank bond payment, $83,530.83.
I'll second it.
Aye.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, now we're at G, employee recognition.
Yeah, we've got Gavin Henshaw in here today. He just completed his collections grade 1 certification. It's a really big step for Gavin as well as for the water department, because now he's able to join the on-call rotation.
Good.
And so we
That's awesome.
just want to congratulate him. And then we've also got on here on employee recognition, the safety committee. If you'll remember, a couple years ago, we started a safety committee to fulfill some things that OSHA requires, like safety walkdowns monthly, and as well as implementing a safety manual that we'd never had before. They're integral in getting that document put together. They put in a lot of work to do it. They spent hours reading through the whole document, probably 3 or 4 times each. And this last December, we replaced them with some new blood. And so we just want to thank them for being the original members of the safety committee and all the hard work they put in to help us get it going. We've got some plaques here for the board to give those members that were able to attend. Kim Cisneros, Bob Batt, and Scott Beck were unable to make it to the meeting. They were held up with other obligations and off. A couple of them went off, so.
It's the first one. Oh, Steve, okay. Jump right up. No. So this is what the award looks like. It's pretty nice. Congratulations, Steve. Connor. It's nice. Congratulations. Thank you.
How you doing? Good. Good.
Mike? See, there he is, hiding in the back. Congratulations, Mike.
Congratulations, Mike.
I'll find out.
There he is, Justin. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
So Kim, Bob, and who else is missing?
Scott Beck.
Scott Beck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. Like anything, it's a big step forward. It's not been without its hurdles, challenges. Things change, more expectations, more accountability comes with it. It's hard to be part of the safety committee that's putting together regulations to make themselves accountable, but they did it and they've had great ideas. And so I just commend you guys. Appreciate it. All the
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate all the hard work you guys do. It's
Thank
important.
you, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Clint, do you want to give us your general manager report?
Yeah, wanted to highlight on the staffing, just some updates on we've got 2 vacant positions. The operations position for a water operator, I think they've interviewed several candidates. It sounds like they've got one that might fit the position, but they want to talk to him a little bit more before we make any recommendations to the board. And then we've got the staff engineer position that's vacant. It was posted in-house. There was no applicants within the in-house pool. both Trevor and Andrew have attended some career fairs
Oh,
to try to drum up interest.
how'd it go?
I think they were,
It was rough.
these first two were not real successful. There's one more that we've heard will probably have more interest. Utah State has a water lab, a water research lab that they run, and their students a lot of students in the engineering programs go there specifically for water. So we're hoping there's some more interest there. But we're also working with the union and the board to talk about other options for that position, so
Good.
we'll have some follow-up on that.
Well, that's awesome.
I will add, we have posted that with all the colleges throughout the state, and we have got a little bit of interest from some of the other colleges.
I think you ought to post to the other water companies and see who we can steal.
As far as water operations, I just wanted to highlight a couple milestones for the team. They had the Zone 3 emergency backup generator has been installed. You can see that as you drive by now. It's on the pad out in front of the 4100 South pump station there, and they've got that scheduled for startup.
Yeah, on February 20th.
February
is when we're
20th.
looking to get that.
So we haven't had backup emergency power for that zone, so to have that was part of our emergency response plan.
How often does the power go down on that?
That one's rare.
Yeah,
Rare.
it's not very often.
It's in pretty stable area.
It's been
It's
pretty
been
stable.
good recently, so.
We've been fortunate in that way, but as we've got these bigger developments that have come online, obviously our
could affect
demand on that has increased. We've got the construction crew completed the install of the fence along that property, on the railroad property we just purchased. So we're glad to have that done. Steve can talk about the inserter valve on 4100 South.
Yeah, that went well. The pipe is actually in a lot better shape than we were
Oh,
anticipating. So everything went smooth on that, and it's gonna service good, so should be good there.
And we'll never know where that hidden valve is, huh?
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
That's crazy.
And then they've installed all 8 of the EDR stacks that have been delivered. We'll just remind you that we'll have another 8 this next year, well, the end of this year,
Fall, winter
fall,
time.
winter.
So do we have all the new technology stacks that are in now?
Yeah, so
Isn't that a
they've
new
installed
technology?
those, and then they've actually started, taking parts off the old ones that are still good.
Oh.
And reusing them into some of the other spots where we
Okay.
put them, so,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's actually going really well down there.
So if you think of it, it's basically like 2 rows, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
So the first row and then the second row, we have done one of them, right?
yeah, so the ones that the old ones that they took out that they're tearing apart, they're actually kind of just putting those in random spots wherever they're needed to buy us some time on the other ones.
But as far as the first that get water treated, right? The stacks are,
Yeah, so we got one whole train,
yeah. So
Is that-
yeah,
the
that's
first stage.
first stage of that
Okay.
train. So, still more to do, but that's going to improve our throughput and efficiency.
so if I understand the new technology, it uses less washdown water to do the same job?
Yeah, so there's actually more cell pairs in there, so we can get a higher volume through it. With basically, it's about the same amount of washdown.
Oh, is it?
But we're getting more production.
More production? Great.
Taking more TDS out of the water.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, on the wastewater side, just want to highlight, they submitted the total phosphorus report for 2024. That came in at 1.4 milligrams per liter, well below the 1.8 that we had to meet, so
That's
that's
good.
positive. Just a reminder for 2025, that's going to be changing, right? So that will get more stringent. That will go down to the 1.0 milligrams per liter.
1.0?
That's what the state's level, we've been on a interim approval.
Variance,
a
total
variance,
phosphorus variance.
because we agreed to put in reuse. They agreed to delay the full restrictive requirement.
What do we have to do to attain a 1.0?
Well, so when we run reuse water, none of that will count.
Oh,
So it will basically be like a zero.
oh, okay.
So we'll add up those months where we're not adding, right, or discharging phosphorus, technically. If you imagine, we have two options. We can discharge to Kersey, or we can discharge to C7.
Okay.
We're discharging to C7, but with the reuse, it'll give us another option to put that water.
Oh, okay.
So if we're not discharging into C7, we basically get credit for that month. If we were able to not discharge, there's zero, right?
Yeah,
Phosphorus. And so the average goes down for the year because you're not putting any in. So,
it's good they don't sample C7 because I guarantee you, there are a lot of dead animals in there, and we should be getting a plus for putting that clean water in that C7.
and it will
Looks a lot
hopefully
better at the
also
bottom.
give Dallas and the team flexibility to not have to be as, when we are discharging, maybe they don't have to put in as much chemical. It will also let us, so the less chemical we put in,
Right,
the better our solids are, right?
okay.
Correct.
So there's multiple benefits to reuse. We've talked about it before, but I think it's always helpful to remind everybody, it's not just on the water side.
Yeah,
This also directly benefits and saves the district money on the wastewater side.
wow, that's great, fantastic.
And then Dallas will talk about aqua aerobics and the reuse. We're getting ready to start that final testing up. And then the shoring.
We're teaching water aerobics down at the plant?
Yeah, they've got a funny
Come on
name.
down.
Sign me up.
They're doing aerobics with the water, I guess is what they're saying. And then the shoring has been installed for the influent pump station, and they're dewatering now, so. On the office side, wanted to let the board know, we did send out our first district-wide Yopify notification for one of the first main break on 7200 West near Parkway. I think overall that was positive. We did have some feedback from the customers. They are able to text back to the number, and we get all those messages.
Okay,
So there were some that said, I don't care, not my problem, or things like that.
at least you know there's a live person on the other end.
But there were several that said thank you. And I did get a call last week from Granger Hunter. One of the managers over there lives in Magna, Michelle. She's over there director of administration. And she was very impressed,
Nice.
working for a district, and said she was asking all kinds of questions about Yopify and felt like that could be a great tool for them. So I think we're finding more and more ways we can use it. We've used it several times on water main breaks. We've started using it for meter changeouts. So Leio will get a list of where they're gonna be changing out meters and give the residents a heads up, hey, in the next couple of weeks, you may have, your meter may be changed out.
How long does it take them to change one out? What?
We tell them 10 to 15 minutes
Yeah.
is the range.
Oh, okay, so it's just a very brief time.
Yeah. We've talked about using it also on the sewer collections, so if they're in an area with hot spots, they can give them the heads up, hey, we're gonna be in your area, keep your toilet lids closed.
Yeah.
And, we'll try to prevent, those blowbacks.
And if you do that, that'll give you a little more feedback too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. We will ultimately be wanting to use that also for the shutoffs and the late payment notices, but we're wanting to get all the bugs worked out with the lower intensity items. Obviously, when it comes to interacting with customers about them not paying bills, it becomes heightened. So we want to make sure we're worked out all the bugs that we can before we start communicating with them about.
How does that work when you've got an owner of a building, but they rent it out? You can't really get a hold of renter.
We've got to have the renter sign up for notifications.
Okay. So that way you're
Yeah,
directly,
Yopify has the ability to put like a primary owner, which would obviously would be the owner, and then that has secondary,
so they both get contacted?
so they could, yes.
Okay.
I'll also mention that for communication and morale, Steve and Raymond have scheduled a localscapes class that Jordan Valley will put on. That's scheduled for Thursday, April 10th from 6 to 7 p.m. We will start advertising in March, but that will train people on how to use the rebates for replacing their landscaping and answer questions, talk about water-wise, conservation, types of plants and things like that.
Yeah, it just kind of gives you an overview how to obtain grants and stuff from Jordan
That would
Valley.
be a big
So
thing.
we'll really start getting the word out so we can hopefully get some good attendance. I think they have an ability to, they want people to register, so we'll know how many attendees
Oh,
in advance, hopefully.
good.
So, and then I think we'll talk about the other two items on here later. So I think that's the report, unless the board has any questions.
I'm getting some good feedback from the cooperation of the office. It's,
Oh, good,
yeah, really, they say, oh, kind of pleasant to talk to, so.
good, that's good.
I didn't know if they were before, but I'm just getting
That's good to
feedback.
pass on.
Well, no, I'm just saying, they go out of their way to say, hey, they're really nice up there and try to be accommodating.
Good to know.
Very good.
Appreciate that.
Okay. So, Trevor, do you want to give us your engineering report?
Thank you. So on here, we'll just start at the top. We've got 8800 West Water Line Project. That's replacing the water line between 3100 South to 2600 South. Design's completed on that. We're out to bid. We had a pre-bid meeting. 3 contractors attended that. So we're feeling pretty good on that one. That closes 2 weeks,
In 2 weeks?
in 2 weeks. So we anticipate bringing something back to the board in March likely for that project.
When it's warmer?
Yep, 7200 West, 3100 South, those are secondary water projects. We're wrapping up the design with Bone and Collins. We still have an anticipation to bid that in maybe February, March timeframe. So that's moving along well. Reuse project, we've kind of talked about that over the course. It's pretty well wrapped up. Minor punch list things being taken care of. It's functioning on the,
When will that be full going? Are we gonna?
so right
have
now we can use the return pumps. So we filter the water and send it back to the C7. Reuse will test those pumps, probably in March,
Okay.
to be able to then go full in April.
Do we still need to dredge the pond before we start putting water?
Not necessarily. They want the pond to have water in it. We talked to them, had a good meeting. One of the things with them is they just don't want a huge fluctuation or to go down low for a long period of time and let stuff dry out. So
Okay.
we might have to adjust kind of how we let that reservoir operate, but we shouldn't.
It's kind of nice because you've got a little bit of flexibility there to whether putting C7 or up or whatever, huh?
Yeah, it's big.
It's cool.
Influent pump station, Clint mentioned, excavation, they've got the shoring in. They've also got the grit building excavated, rebar for the foundation. Doing a lot of site piping work as well, so that's moving along well. Our facility plan for the wastewater treatment plant, we've got a final draft and we're putting together some information to start presenting that to the board. So we'll probably bring some information in March to kind of talk about the first part of it and kind of work through it maybe in a couple months, two separate board meetings or 3.
Okay.
But anticipate that for March.
There's that much information and we got to have 2 separate.
Well, I mean, there's just a lot to digest, I guess. So we felt like it might be nice to
Maybe
kinda-
call a special board meeting and then just have it for that, or,
we could have, that's a potential, yeah.
because then we wouldn't be doing everything else and trying to fit it all
Yeah,
in.
maybe that's
Be a
something
long day.
the board could discuss, and if that's an option you
And
want.
when do you think that will be? Sometime?
I mean, we were anticipating bringing some information in March.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Haynes 8 replacement still in review by the EPA. But as far as plans and specs go, that's complete. Haynes Well 7 rehabilitation, that plan has been turned into the state in review. So as soon as we get comments back or hear from them that there are no comments, then
Is it
we'll-
taking longer than you expected for these
It's a
agencies?
30-day turnaround, so no.
That's
At this
about what
point,
you
we're-
expected?
Yeah, it's on track. West Side Collection, they're out there moving along fairly well, just doing the collection installation. And they're probably, more than that now, in the 600 or 800 feet installed at this point. Still anticipate crossing the freeway SR 201 in April.
So they'll cross 201 in April when it's warmer?
Yeah, that was kind of the schedule of the contractor for doing that crossing. It's when they had an opening, but
Are they encountering any delays or problems with that line going down?
no, hasn't been an issue. We have seen some of some sloughing of the trench a little bit more. Obviously, they're using a trench box, but there's been some little bit of sloughing. So they've had some challenges out there in install, but
Of course, that was been a swamp, so
it's such a bad road too. I mean, there's areas where the pavement's like an inch.
no way. Really?
If you drove it before we started, it was like,
No kidding.
just,
And we have to go 12 feet wide to patch the road? What?
they can thank us later. Anyways, all right, and then just the Zone 3 secondary reservoir, we've wrapped up the design of that. It's in review also by outside agencies, and then we'll have it. We still have the potential to bid that towards the end of February. Then that would be a few weeks, and likely wouldn't be ready for the March board meeting, but April. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Trevor, appreciate it. So, Steve, do you want to give us water operations report?
Sure. So, the culinary water production for the month of January was 102.06 million gallons, or 279.32 acre feet, which was a 9.81% increase from 2024. So far, we've purchased 67.34 acre feet of water from Jordan Valley. As far as call-outs go, we had a total of 18, 14 of them were water and 4 of them were wastewater. For a total hour call-out was 87.75, 69 and a half of them were water and 18.25 were wastewater. We had 3 main line leaks, 2 service line leaks, and then 13 miscellaneous calls.
So it looks like the miscellaneous calls took quite a bit of time.
Yeah, so here just in the last couple of weeks, we actually started getting hit with frozen waters.
Oh,
So,
because we had that thaw.
yeah, it thawed and then got cold, and we don't have any snow to insulate anything, so.
Well, let me tell you, I tried to dig a hole and it was at least 3 foot deep frost. It was really tough.
So up there at that inserter valve on 4100, Justin and them went up and potholed it, like, what, 2 weeks before Raymond, before it was dug? And there was 0 frost in the ground, and he said when they went up, they ended up taking the jackhammer, because it was so thick that they couldn't get through it.
Wow.
But, yeah, other than that stuff that we talked about earlier, just a couple things, the guys have been going hard on leaks pretty much every
Do-
day.
Do we have any way when we get these call-outs to decipher them at all to see if they could put it off until the following week or?
Yeah, so pretty
Till the-
much what it boils down to is on the call-outs, if it's causing property damage or people without service,
Okay.
then it's an emergency, we gotta fix it right then.
Okay.
If not, we try to push it off till working hours,
Okay.
so. But yeah, they've just been going hard on leaks for the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you guys have seen the ones on 72, the big ones we had over there.
Yeah.
We had 2 big leaks
Wow.
that, they hit us pretty good. We ended up having to have Miller Paving come in and asphalt them, cause they were so big.
Oh, my heck.
Yeah, they're big patches, so
That's crazy.
we got that done, and then Matt got the meter in for Jordan Valley, so how we talked about
Oh,
that.
he did?
Yeah.
A couple meetings ago. He's got that, just came in, we'll get that scheduled and hopefully get it replaced before the next month.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Wastewater, Dallas?
Yes, sir. I'd like to start with the collections operations update. The crews are doing their annual manhole inspections. I just wanted to notify the board that they're working through town from east to west, and they're gonna be doing 2820 south from 8400 to 8000 west. So if you see them on the road with their lights, they'll have a little bit of traffic control. I just didn't want you to see them and think there was a leak or something that maybe you weren't notified on. So that work will continue probably through March, is usually about how long it takes us to get through the town. We generally start that project once it gets too cold to take the Vector out. So, and then going back to what Mr. Dilly said about the Yopify, we've got a list of addresses where we've had sewer issues before, where we've blown a toilet, and we'll work with the office staff to make sure those get plugged into Yopify, and along with knocking on the door prior to running the line, we'll do the Yopify blast. So just get double coverage and make sure we're not doing any damage or just keeping the public informed.
What temperature, how cold does it have to get where it can affect our vac system?
It's not necessarily the vac system, it's the water.
Right.
So anywhere near freezing, once that truck gets rolling down the road, if outside temperature is about 30 degrees, then the rotor line will freeze up. There is a feature on the truck where you can keep the water in circulation. We do that if we've got to get out for an emergency, but best practice for us is keep that truck parked in the climate control unless it's an emergency.
Yeah. So we're, like next week, goes back up to about 34 and stuff, we're in pretty good shape there.
Right, yeah, so even if it does get cold, like for example, because the Super Bowl Sunday is our biggest flow day of the year, we took the truck out even though the temperatures were cold, and we hit all the hot spots just in case, just, preventative. So it is possible, it's just, if you get out in operations and the truck freezes, then you're just waiting. So we try to avoid that as much as we can. On the treatment operation side, I just wanted to say that the performance testing by the cloth disc filter manufacturer took place last week, and everything is performed as designed. And maybe just a reminder, I know Clint and Trevor both talked about our ability to run the return line and go back to C7, or we've got the ability to run up to the irrigation system. But we have been running 24/7 since prior to Thanksgiving. So we've got a couple months of good operation time. So we're feeling pretty good about that.
So is Kersey Creek gonna dry up then?
Yeah, we haven't discharged to Kersey Creek for several years. We maintain the permit and we report on it each month as a no discharge. That way, if there's ever an emergency, we continue to have that option.
Now, I did see some water in there, but it was a little farther north. It must come from the east or something? In the drainage ditch?
On the south side of our 2100 South, where they've started doing all that development, they've kind of blocked off the feeding waters to our portion of Kersey. So we haven't seen water south of our discharge point for several years.
Oh,
North of our property, I can't speak to that. There may be some flow in there.
does anything come from Morgan or Golden Eagle? Nothing
No.
comes?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Okay. Where did their off water go?
They've piped it to storm drain.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
they have large basins on lots.
really?
So separately, we have to submit an annual biosolids report that just talks about how we classify our solids, how we transport it, how we treat it. That's typically due in the beginning of March. I was able to support that or submit that this week. And then part of that biosolids report is accounting for all the sludge that we create and haul away. And I shared this with Clint earlier this week. In 2024, our treatment operations staff hauled 13,530,920 pounds of solids to the landfill. And that was a new record for us. To break that down, that was 551 truckloads from our plant to the landfill. And we were able to do that last year with 0 safety accidents reported. So we were pretty proud of that. We recognized our staff, and it was just kind of a neat thing for us. So
Now, do the solids go to ED or to
ET,
ET?
yep, just west of the county
Do
landfill.
we see that they're ever going to be jeopardized to have to move?
There's been some talks of that based on that West Valley lawsuit. We've got a little bit of a discussion item later on the agenda where we can talk about some things we're looking at as options with some of the uncertainty with land applying biosolids in the state. But as of right now, we're still full steam ahead.
Do you have a backup if something happened there?
Kind of.
Or have you been looking at some backups?
Currently evaluating. We've talked with other districts about where they go. At that point, you know, there's a lot to try to figure out. So we're currently in evaluation for that. The next agenda item will speak a little bit to that. So there was some talk at the end of last year about ET moving to a new site beginning January 1 of 2026. But it's kind of mum's the word on that. They're not saying one way or the other if they're being forced to shut down and their facility's moving or not. So that's still something that we're fully investigating.
Do we test our biosolids?
We do. So there's monthly, quarterly, and then the annual reports that all have to be submitted.
So is it just a random test on each truckload, or?
Well, they test the organics, they test the metals, and then they test the moisture content. So, and then they also test the smell. So
Is the moisture a big thing?
it is, and mostly that's, you know, that has to do with how you haul it, right? So our average moisture for 2024 was 13.1%. So we're 13% solids and 86% moisture.
But we're getting as much out as we can. aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting, with our dewatering equipment, that design is anywhere from 15 to 12% is what they designed to dewater. With the chemical injection that we do at the plant, like Mr. Dilly mentioned, sometimes the addition of extra chemical can compromise the solids. And what I mean by that is when we're not adding alum to combat total phosphorus, our solids are a little bit drier. When we add this additional alum to decrease our total phosphorus, then our solids tend to be a little bit wetter. Anywhere around 11, 12, 13% is totally fine to haul in the truck over the road. When you start getting into single digits, 9%, it gets a little soupy. So, but yeah, our solids have been in really good shape.
Okay. Is there, as far as the levels that we measure, are we in pretty good shape? Is there anything we need to look at as far as improving?
We've had this discussion with ET based on them being the facility where we do our land applying. And there's a chemical product that we apply topically kind of as a odor neutralizer. It's not mandatory, but just out of good faith, we do it, and we maintain an application rate of somewhere on their order of 7 ounces per ton, right? So I do a report every month where we track the amount of gallons of this neutralizer that we spray on, and it kind of postpones the decomposition rate.
Oh.
And then as it gets over to ET, they can smell the deodorizer, and it's less reason for them to get out their smell testers and kind of stay off our back. So we've kind of taken that proactive approach. We've been doing that for three or 4 years. It's just a Quick Soil 2900 BioLife is what they call it. We buy it in 300-gallon drums, and we just, we've got a feed system. As the solids come off of our press, it's just a little irrigation type nozzle that coats it topically as it hits the truck.
And then that delays the breakdown?
Correct.
Which would be making a gas?
Yeah, there is potential for gas creation, but mostly it's just a deodorizer or odor neutralizer.
Okay.
So it's not a permanent deal, it's just, it's, for lack of a better philosophy, it's like spraying some cologne on yourself, right? It doesn't last forever, but if it gets you through the date night, then you're probably good to go.
But ET's real sensitive about that, so we're doing that just to facilitate
Right.
backup ET.
There's been times where our boys have been out to the landfill and other entities have been turned away based on smells, and that's not ever something that we want to be involved with, so.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, it's been probably 6 or 7 years, wow. Coming off ET was, didn't even want to go to the dump, it was so bad.
Sure.
Oh, that's great, that's great. Okay, thank you.
I believe that's all I have, Mr. White, unless you have any questions.
No, that's a good report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dallas. Okay, so we're on to Liao,
Thank you.
number 5.
So first of all, we have the legal requirements checklist. We are in compliance. Some of the highlighted areas or items were the, excuse me, the annual filing of impact fees report is due at the end of March. That'll be filed by then, and working on that now. Participation in Utah Public Finance website, that's the transparency website, and our last quarter for 2024 has been posted to that site. The one after that is quarterly budget to actual reports to the Board of Trustees, which is going to happen after this. And then also that same information is posted to the transparency website. The semi-annual state money management report has been filed. It was due at the end of January. And then the Division of Corporations, where people can look up who to file claims to. I double checked that. That is still current. It has our new website on it and our email addresses, so that was verified. The annual water use report is due at the end of March. We are working on that to get that submitted. Conflict of interest, annual certification, that's another agenda item in just a minute. I'll skip that for a minute. And then the annual filing and fraud risk assessment, that's been filed with the state. And we appointed a board chair last month, and that's all the items on that list.
So if there's a problem, you'd hear back on it, right?
I'm sorry?
If there were any problems, you would hear back on it?
Yes, yes. The next item under my section is the quarterly financial reports. Now, this report is as of the end of the year. However, it's before our audit, and we do have ending year journal entries that are not in here yet. But as far as budget to actual, that's not going to change too much. So at the end of the year, we ended up with overall income of 9.2 million, which was a 2.7 million below 2023. And that reduction is due to impact fees, and the connection fees were lower in '24. On page 2, it actually shows that in the chart, However, most of our revenue items, the water sales, the sewer service charges, property taxes, most of them are above budget, which is good. However, the grant is lower than budget. That is because I believe we had that 1.3 in the budget, and we have not received that yet. Hoping to receive that this year, but that's why that's lower than the budget. The contributed capital lines, obviously, budget shows higher than actual because we have not recorded that. That's part of the year-end audit kind of entries that we will put in. But we look like we ended up pretty good above budget in the revenue. The expenses, we are pretty much below budget on all of them. Other operating expenses were below, we ended up below budget on all of the operating expenses. So that's a good place to be. I don't anticipate those changing much. What will change it a bit would be our final inventory counts and adjustments. But I still think we'll be under budget after that.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
On the next chart for the project payments made, we ended up spending $23.4 million in '24 on like capital projects. A lot of that is the property we purchased.
Right.
And the majority was reuse property, and yeah, that's about it. We do anticipate the Influent project paying more out on that this year. The restricted and non-restricted funds, I kind of added some categories. Bear with me for a minute. There's the blue chart. If you go to the next page, where it's orange and blue, that kind of gives us the total. So right now, well, end of December, we had 15.3 in restricted cash, 16.5 in unrestricted. Back up to the blue chart, Trevor. It breaks out the reserves showing committed funds. Committed funds are ones that the board's awarded projects to. If we were to spend reserves on those committals, then the remaining unrestricted cash, that dark blue section, would be 6.8 million. That's remaining after, that's remaining unrestricted.
From 9.6 down to 8.2?
The 9.6 is how much we've committed. So total unrestricted, back to that other one, was, sorry.
15.
How much?
15 million?
Was 16.5. So 16.5. After if we spend all our money, it would drop it down to 6.8.
Okay, I see it.
That's unrestricted. So restricted, we had a total of 15 right now. So of that 15, we've committed 7.6 of that. So that would leave us, after our bonding amounts, 2.9, that would leave us with 4.7 in restricted cash. So as you can see, we've committed, if we were to spend all of our reserves on those committals, we would only have 10, almost 11 million in reserves. So, I mean, that's getting to a level where if Standard & Poor looked at it, it would affect our bond rating.
It would. Are we gonna have to go over a bond rating this year?
I've,
I think this is the message we've been communicating to the board is we've had a lot of capital projects and we have many more that we need to continue. if you remember the master plan we did in 2020, identified bonding as a requirement. We've been able to delay that for several years, but I think we've reached the point where we're either gonna have to hold off on some of these critical projects, or we're gonna have to bond.
Okay.
Now, some of this, with the sale of the property, if we're able to sell
That should
the
help.
property, that is a significant impact on this.
That should look good.
Yeah, that might buy us a little bit of time this year.
Okay.
But I think what we would propose is we finish up the new master plan.
Okay.
We get a new, clear schedule that's up to date and current, and then we come back to the board and.
Do we have to spend a lot of time to upgrade the master plan? Because there was a lot of work went into the first one.
Yeah, we've been working on that.
Have you?
We are
Planning
working
on
on
a board update probably next month, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, an
On where
initial
we're
update.
at.
Good.
We think by May, June timeframe, we'll know the majority of the financial information.
Okay.
So that'd be a good time to kind of, like you said, talk about funding future projects. and-
Okay.
and that.
But I think what Leal is saying is, hey, you know, we've got to be mindful of where we're at on the these funds, so
Yeah, for sure.
reserves.
Thank you, Clint.
Yeah.
Just another pie chart to show you where some of our money has gone. The payables, we've decreased our payables. In other words, we've made payments on our bonds, but the total that we spent for our payables was 2.5 from 23 to 24. But obviously, the big yellow portion is our debt payments that we paid. So at least we were able to pay our bond payments. So that's good. And then the rest of the pages that follow are details. So if you want to get down to each account, everything, that's what is behind there. But that's all I have for the financial report, unless the board has any questions about it.
You have any questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you, Leal. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sorry, real quick, 2 other items under my section. This is basically a report to have on record that the trustees were able to submit their conflict of interest forms by the 31st, and we did get them posted to our website. The Lieutenant Governor was notified by that letter of where they are to be found, and so we were in compliance by then, so I didn't have to issue any, what do you call it, any warnings. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. And then just to have on record, we just want to have you guys keep in mind that each year we have to be trained on the Open and Public Meetings Act. Normally we do it in November, so, but we just wanted to have that on record. And that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you, Leal. So, Mr. Sumptions, you want to give us our,
Yeah, thank you, Board. First thing up is the pre-trip inspections with Verizon Connect. We talked a little bit about it last month, possibly going and looking at a digital version of the vehicle inspections. Verizon had contacted me earlier in the year and told me that they had this available as an add-on to our GPS system that we're already using with Verizon. And so some of the benefits that come from this, there's one, the first glaring one is we spent nearly $2,000 on the inspection books for last year. We're looking at probably around $540 a year going this route.
there's that much difference.
Yeah.
You
But-
can still produce reports from it and stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's actually one of the bigger positives is it gives you real-time data.
Easier to manage.
Easier to manage. The managers can look up and see it right then and there. If a vehicle starts moving and there hasn't been a inspection. It can alert the managers. It has timestamps so that we know when it was happening, so that if Dallas says, hey, my guys should have been out and about by 7:30 this morning, and I've only got 2 inspection sheets, he can start looking to see what went there. These are also compliant with the DOT things for if they were to be checked for CDL stuff, they're trackable for that. So on here, we don't have it as a approval item. What I'm looking for is some guidance from the board. What I'd suggest is maybe getting 6 licenses. You can cancel it month to month. We don't need to commit to anything. Get 6 licenses.
Each license is for,
Each vehicle.
okay,
And so we're looking at about $45 a month for the vehicle, all the vehicles, because it's $1.25 per vehicle.
oh, so it's 540 a year
Yeah.
for everything we
Yes.
need to cover?
Yeah.
Okay,
And so what I would suggest is getting 5, 6 licenses for 1 month, giving Dallas and Steve both access to it, and then assign it to a couple of the trucks so that we can see how works for them, as well as getting me a license so that I can.
so it will
See how
also
I-
save us in labor, right,
Yes.
besides the cost
Oh,
difference?
absolutely.
Okay, and that's a big thing,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So that would be my suggestion. What are the board's thoughts on where we move forward?
It's kind of a no-brainer, what do you think, Danny?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Great.
Okay, we'll try it out for this month, and we'll report back to you next month on how the sample went and go from there.
Okay,
The only other thing,
Way to go.
the only other thing that I have for you today is our safety topic for this month is heart health. We're talking a lot about staying physically healthy through exercise, diet, and things like that. So
okay, great,
that's it for my report.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're into I, project awards and agreements. So Andrew, do you want to
Oh,
start us
back
off?
to me. Okay, we talked last month about doing a monthly raffle for us at the safety meeting for a gift card. So I was asked to bring it back today for approval. My suggestion would be that we move forward with it as a $50 gift card if there's no incidents that quarter. And each employee would have one raffle ticket in there. They can win once a year. Not every employee will get one throughout the year, but there would be 12 winners as long as we had no safety incidents.
Okay. And I think we've discussed this before, so I believe that's, you refined,
Yeah.
okay,
We all agreed on that.
I thought so. So, I'll make a motion to approve the monthly safety meeting gift cards in the form of a raffle to start next month. Okay,
I'll second that.
it's been motion and second to approve the monthly safety meeting gift cards. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Trevor?
All right, thank you, board. So this is for our SCADA upgrades project. We had that out to bid, and we've got those bids in. We had 2 bidders. There was ID Electric and Total Power and Controls. For the total bid schedule, ID Electric was the apparent low at $499,855. And that is, we feel reflective. There were 25 locations, a lot of mobilization, coordination through there. ID Electric has, be working with global data specialists, so they're both well qualified.
So is Total Power and Controls did work for us?
They have.
They have? Okay.
Yeah, and AE2S, the consultant that helped us with this, has some experience with global data specialists. We feel that they're qualified and capable to do the
So
work.
they'll oversee everything?
AE2S?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. That's
So it
correct.
has to meet their requirements and all the things they've established for
Yeah,
communication.
plans and specifications. correct.
Okay. Okay. So, I'd like to make a motion to approve, the SCADA upgrades project award to ID Electric in the amount of $499,855.
And I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Just move on to the next one.
Yep.
So this is the construction management services and programming for the SCADA upgrades for AE2S. So this will, like you said, they'll be managing the ID Electric contractor throughout, and they'll also do the programming of the equipment once it's installed.
So,
So this would get us up and functioning and running and collecting all the data we need for trending and
what's the time frame we expect on this?
so it's gonna be throughout the year. I believe we had it scheduled to start as the equipment, they'll start having that roll in March and April. And I think we had it completion in October?
So do we have some long lead items that we have?
None of them are long lead.
Oh,
I
good.
think most of it is, when I mention coordination, we want to make sure that we're shutting off a pump station when it's not in, peak and things like that, so we can have them do the work. So there'll be a lot of that kind of coordination and moving from one site to the next, and so just taking time throughout that. So they have plenty
Will
of,
our backup generators be interfaced in this upgrade?
the backup generators.
I mean, will they know if everything's working and changed over, or is that something that we manually have to do?
I think it will still be incorporated.
Okay.
But the sites that have backup would be Zone 3 Booster, 8,000, just those two.
And Barton and Haynes.
Well, and Barton and Haynes, have their own. That's through the EDR, so that's functioning off that. So, anyways.
So does this involve the EDR plant also?
Just to bring the information in and then tie it into the EDR SCADA, so there's still that gap
Okay.
there.
So we still need to do that so that we've got everything covered?
Yeah,
Or-
it will be pretty seamless. Mark Taylor with SKM that does the SCADA side for the plant, he will still be involved once all that, is set up there to make sure that information is all being
So for the
shared.
EDR plant, basically it's monitoring only?
Yeah, we just have to have the two systems talking together so that the EDR plant can function like it's supposed to.
Right, okay,
Yeah, so all of that will be
okay.
done as well.
That it?
Yep.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the task order for construction management services and programming for the SCADA upgrades to AE2S in the amount of $215,820.
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Dallas?
Yes, sir, Mr. White. This agenda item covers the quotation for our 2025 acoustic assessment. It's the agreement that we have with SLRAP. If you remember, this is an acoustic inspection of, this year we've teed up 286,000 linear feet of collection system piping. So this is a service that they provide. They come in, they inspect the 286,000 linear feet, and they do it in about 3 weeks. Then I work with them and I generate a report card, an overall health condition assessment of the lines that have been assessed, and then I use that to bring back to the board and give you a general idea of the overall system health for the year. So last year we did about 75,000. We're not going to inspect the new sections in Little Valley again, so we've been able to cut some of the costs by not inspecting those. And then some of the areas in downtown Magna that get flushed twice a year, we won't do this acoustic assessment on those either, so.
Now, the acoustic determines leaks in the system?
No, the acoustics determines flow through the pipe, so
If there's restricted flow?
if there's restricted flow.
Okay. So that will signify or confirm hot spots and things like that?
Correct. Or if there's any blockages, so the way the acoustic assessment trends or the chart that comes back, it'll come back as a grade 1 through 10, red, yellow, or green. If it's green, it's an 8 or higher and it's got 90% flow. If you get down into the yellows and the reds, then you're looking at some type of blockage. It could be something real small like spider webs, but it could be a significant blockage. But the neat thing is you get an instant readout at the machine. So if they're out in the system and they come across the line that produces a red, then we automatically get an alert and we can dispatch our crews right on site. So
Is that something that, how expensive is that equipment to buy so we can do our own assessment?
it's pretty significant, and right now, this is a proprietary system that they only have, and they're willing to lease it. Last time we looked into the leasing, it was significant. It would take us several years to recoup the costs, and it's constantly being updated, so
How often do we do the acoustic test?
we do once a year, and this is probably our 8th year.
So we've done it 8 times. Is there other people that make acoustic equipment?
Not like this. The neat thing about what these guys do is they also provide us with the dashboard. So we use that dashboard, and it's got a map of everything that gets inspected, and then we use that map to overlay our camera inspections through our Possum software, and then we coordinate with our GIS contractors, and they can use some of that new information to help incorporate into our existing GIS. So it's kind of a 2 or 3 fold system here that we get with a single benefit.
Yeah, I can't believe it for $68,000 for 2 weeks worth of work. I just can't hardly believe we can't find another type of system that would deter, other than camera.
Sure, and the
You
camera,
can't cover that many linear feet. How many linear feet are we talking?
this bid is 286,000, so it's about 85% of the system. The real benefit here, to your point, Mr. White, is the time, right? So we can flush the entire system one time in 1 year, and we can camera the whole system in about 18 months. But these guys can come in and do the whole thing in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we can look at the data and recognize any spots that, if in the calendar year, we're down on 7,200 below 3,100, and this acoustic assessment finds a red or a yellow in downtown Magna, we might not get to it for 6 or 8 months.
Right,
So-
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that, like, if they've got a piece of equipment, I can't believe that somebody else has something similar to this.
I'm happy to look into that. I think it's probably a good exercise in just evaluating cost to see if there's a competitor that's come along. This is not something that is very common. There's a lot of districts in our area that do it now, but you don't see a lot of other people advertising this, but it's something I can look into.
I just wondered, like, say, if we're doing it every year, because once you get this report, and when will this be done?
They usually turn the report in a week or 2 after the
Well, I
work's
mean,
done.
what time of the year are they gonna be doing
Oh,
this?
they'll start this early March.
March, okay. Then all of a sudden, that gives you a report card, or a report to get after the yellows and reds,
I
right?
believe last year I reported back to the board on the inspection April board meeting. So that's usually what I try to target.
But I mean, in order to hit all these hot spots, how long did it take from that April? When you
It's
reported?
only 2% of the system comes back as red. So it doesn't take long. We can usually knock it out in a week.
Seems like I seen the report, yellows and reds. There
Right.
wasn't a lot, but there was.
Right. It's about 2% between red and black.
Yeah.
And then about 70% of the system's green.
The one thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see what's reoccurring, reds and yellows. Every year you're doing this report, I'd like to see what's reoccurring.
Generally, when I do my presentation to the board, I have a year-over-year data set, and I can show you the decrease in reds and yellows and the increase in greens based on service maintenance throughout the years. So right now I've got, this dashboard was generated in 2021. So I've got data overlaid from 21 through 24.
Okay.
And that way we can see the increase. And typically I've got a slide that says 2021, 6% of our lines were red and black. 2022, it went down to 5%. So you can kind of see the improvement year to year based on the way we use this data and this technology to really target the hotspots in our system.
Okay. Well, I think it's a useful tool. I'm not so sure it isn't something that you should be putting in your arsenal for us to keep up on the system. Because if it's only taken 2 weeks, then again, you got training and everything else, so I'm not so sure. It's just something possibly to look at, so. Okay. You have any questions?
No, I thought he done good there.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual acoustic inspection services with R.H. Borden for the collection system in the amount of $64,785.
I'll second that.
It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. Let's see. Trevor,
Yep.
you're next.
Yep, so this is proposed changes to our development extension agreement, specifically the warranty period. Adjusting that from 2 years, which is the current warranty period, to 1 year. And this, we talked about maybe a year ago, a little bit, because development had raised some concerns over our
Stink.
warranty period. We did find at that time, that we were likely in the, not in the norm. Most warranty periods were 1 year, other districts and cities. And we did also look into, what type of issues come about during warranty periods. And most of the time, those are kind of superficial. They're concrete. They're great, rings, manhole lids, and sometimes we catch things like that.
Yeah,
just
sometimes
slight
it takes 2
adjustments.
years to show up, though.
Sometimes, yeah, the concrete wouldn't crack within 1 year.
Let me just give an overview. I think
But also-
this question's come up year after year.
Yeah,
We get pounded by developers saying that we're inconsistent with law because it's 1 year for contractors' work, guaranteed usually. So we fight this battle year after year. I think the reality is, based on, and Nathan can tell you a little bit more after this summary, but the legal pressure and the legislative pressure is reached a point where I don't think it's in the best interest of the district to continue with the 2-year policy. I think there's more downsides now at this point. I think we've benefited from it, but I don't think we're at a point where it's worth being the only district requiring 2-year warranties, because there's also some legal gray area. And I think it sounds like it's going to be addressed in this legislative session anyway.
So the biggest complaint is we're holding on quite a bit of money for that.
Yes.
But do we have any other legal ramification when something shows up within a 2-year period?
So here's the challenge. A few years ago, the legislature passed a law that said, and I'll just quote it, that a special district shall comply with the Land Use Development Act, which requires only a 1-year period. And this is the critical language. If a land use authority, i.e. a city, consults with or allows a special district to participate in any way in a land use authority's land use development review or approval process. So the intent of that language was to to basically limit special districts to 1-year warranty periods. Because the way it works in most districts, you guys are unique in the way that you're set up. All my other districts, the city or the county will contact the water authority and say, hey, we got this building permit or this subdivision application or whatever, will you issue a will serve letter? And so in that case, this provision's triggered because the land use authority is consulting with the entity and triggering this requirement. But in your case, The Land Use Authority doesn't consult with you. It doesn't involve you in the process. Instead, the developer comes to you and you guys approve these projects at these meetings. And so that's the distinction. And so I've took the position, I said, well, the way that this is written, we were not involved in their process and this isn't triggered. And so that's the pushback that they're getting, is that the developers all have this mindset that this was written to limit special districts to a 1-year warranty period.
We're still getting away with it.
And they see this as, so it's a loophole. And there is legislation that's coming this session that will close this loophole anyway. And so the discussion we've had, I don't think it's a loophole, but I think that the challenge with this language is it was intended, I didn't know this until recently because I wasn't involved in drafting it, but it was intended to apply to all districts. But it was negotiated in such a way that that's the language that's there. So the intent was that it would apply to everybody, but the way they wrote it, it doesn't, in my opinion, technically apply to you. But the problem is that it's made you an outlier, and so every time a developer comes here and we say 2 years, they'll say, well, it's 1 year, and they cite this statute, and then we give them an explanation, and it's this continual fight.
Yeah, and that's, it creates quite a bit of unnecessary, I think, crossroads
Tension.
and block, you know, it breaks down communication sometimes. Creates quite a bit of frustration. I think it makes challenges for developers and the contractors that are bidding for them, because now they're having to try to get them to agree to a 2-year that's not standard. I just think we've reached the end of the line with all of these factors. I would recommend, along with Trevor.
Well, I just go by what you guys are really
I think
concerned
we're to
about
the
this,
point
because
where-
there's things that showed up, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like the 1-year warranty. I'll be honest, I don't like it in the Land Use Development Code, and I don't like it being applied to special districts, but that's the way it's going.
Reality.
There's no other wording we can put in there. I mean, the biggest complaint I heard is they were holding on their money, but do we still make them liable for the workmanship?
Yeah, we do it through that warranty period, and the punch list.
Okay.
The warranty period doesn't relieve them if they don't have punch list items completed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't even start until everything, is completed, all of these.
We're gonna have to be a little tighter on our inspections and
Yeah.
stuff now, aren't we?
I think so, and I think that we just have to, it's the reality of the situation that everybody deals with.
And we
right?
can see that coming. They were really screaming about the whole thing, so, okay.
All right.
Thanks, Nathan.
So I'll just, with it, if you go through the document, there's also some adjustment in here to when Magna became a city. There were some references to, like Salt Lake County and things like that. So there are some, not just the warranty period, but it also changes Magna, or adds Magna City in there to be consistent with what's current,
Okay.
so.
And Trevor, I'm sorry I missed this when I looked at this before, but on the first page on the general index, the bottom right-hand corner, it says September 2020. We should probably update that if this is approved. We've got all the other dates updated throughout. We have a revision date,
Yeah,
so we should probably just
Okay.
update that September 2020 date on the first page.
that will be done.
But other than that, I've looked at it, and I think that it's Trevor's proposed are good.
So does that need to be changed, or?
Yeah, we just say, if you're willing to accept these changes, you would just move to approve the amendments, subject to my change.
Okay. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to change development extension agreement warranty period from 2 years to 1 year with the amended changes that will be done by the legal counsel.
I'll second that.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. And we talked about biosolids.
Yes, sir, there's a little more to cover there, if we could have just one more minute of your time.
Okay.
Inside your packet, you'll see an insert titled Biosolids Land Application Sites Acquisition. So earlier this year, there was an email blast that went out to about 60 entities within the state. And they're trying to coordinate a discussion on biosolids and the decreasing available land for application. So when we talked earlier about the availability of land application sites for biosolids, we're not the only entity that's kind of looking forward into in time to find other options. So this email came out, and then there was a meeting that happened. Mr. Dilly and Trevor and I attended the meeting, and there was representatives from all over the state representing different districts that deal with biosolids handling. And what they're looking to do is kind of as a group, find an area within the state where we can all go and start applying our biosolids. So this was Skull Valley is one of the options. They had a map with several locations that they identified. We're in the very beginning stages of this, and what I wanted to communicate to the board was that we thought it was important for the district to have some involvement in this. That it's not a request for money, and they're not looking for anybody to come up to give land or anything like that. Right now, it's just, okay, what districts in the area have an interest in possibly getting together on something like this? So the next step after the meeting was they've sent out a questionnaire that talks about, some of the technical aspects of our treatment processes and some of the makeups of our biosolids specifically. So I've worked through that questionnaire. That's due for submission by the 21st of February. I've got that prepared to send back. They'll just take those questionnaires and at that point find out who within the state is interested in potentially being involved in this, or more importantly for us, we're just keeping our options open and just trying to see what the future might hold for land applying biosolids.
Yeah, I think big picture, they're trying to preserve some land. They think that they might have more success if they involve all the wastewater treatment facilities, because then the state might recognize this and help, whether the state offers up some land that they have available, whether they create an agency that will help regulate. And
That sounds like it's gonna be expensive.
yeah, so they will at some point. I think Dallas is right. This first one is, they're trying to get a sense of how big the problem is.
Okay.
How much land would they need? How much area? The next step would be a commitment. So the next step, if they go forward with engineering and appraisals and all that, there is some commitment that we would put some money towards it. So
I wondered, I talked to Clint Rogers quite a bit about this, and I asked him, I guess the only way to really treat the solids is cooking it.
Sure.
That's quite expensive, and I've talked to that other engineer down at that other wastewater treatment plant. They cook it, and it's quite an expense for them to cook it in those screws that take it up to, I think it's 140 degrees or something.
thermal drying, yeah.
Yeah, and that's expensive. But I'm wondering now with nanotechnology, is there something that we can spray that would arrest or stop the degradation of the material that would cause something that would control the bacteria that wouldn't continue to grow? Because I think that's what makes it
I
happen.
think what you're addressing is the smell, right?
Well, it's just the whole degradation thing. If you can stop that, like sterilize it with maybe some nano spray or something. I mean, there's a lot of things being developed.
Yeah, I think typically we see the wastewater treatment plants that do that cooking or incineration. They're doing that to break down those branched chain fluorocarbons or the PFAS, right?
Right.
So a lot of these land application sites are closing due to that PFAS that's in the biosolids. So something that we don't have a lot of long-term data on or the ability to break that down. So incineration is one option. During our last biosolids inspection last year, our representative from the state came out to inspect our biosolids. we talked in depth about alternatives. He said right now there's a 10 to 15-year wait list for a incineration permit in our state. So at that point, it's like, yes, that's potentially an option. But we've got to kind of keep an eye on the now, the year from now, the 2 years from now, and then keep an eye on that long-term 10 to 15 year from now.
I don't like the word, you use the word incineration. I don't believe that is. When you're just heating biosolids to
Yeah,
100,
There's two options there, yeah.
140
The-
degrees is just heating it to a sterile state. And I
That
believe,
won't, I think the point Dallas was making is that won't address the PFAS. That won't break down PFAS.
Okay.
That helps you get drier, and so your land application's smaller,
okay,
right? I mean, but, so they're currently doing that, but that's not gonna be enough for them to destroy PFAS.
what temperature do we?
PFAS, you have to get,
I think it's closer to 1,000.
yeah, it's
1,000 degrees?
for destruction, because it's not just drying at that point.
Right, oh, absolutely, that's a big expense.
So
for
that's
that
why
many
they're so
tons.
concerned, is if they have to have a place to put this material, a lot of, like Dallas said, there's more and more restrictions on, because the PFAS is starting to take this cradle to the grave type,
Okay,
where somebody's gotta stop it doesn't degrade, so it gets just moved down the line, and they're gonna put it, ultimately, I think we all feel like the water systems have to now get it out, and then the
Yeah.
wastewater.
Okay.
We're gonna be the ones that ultimately have to deal with it.
I just wonder if there's an option if they can treat it that would encapsulate it some way.
I think they're looking at it. I don't know where they're at on it. but,
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the thermal drying there. So there's different classifications of biosolids, A, B, C. We're classified as B.
B.
Once you get into the class A solids, then you can compost it and sell it to the general
Yeah,
public,
but
right?
Clint said that is a milestone to go.
My
from
only
B
point
to
in
A.
bringing that up is a lot of the people that are having class A biosolids, they are using the thermal dryers.
Are they?
Yeah, and that's how you get basically from the class B to the class A. That's
I
one
don't think
step.
they're going to 1,000 degrees. All the people I talked to,
No, the 1,000 is PFAS destruction. So that would require, if you wanted to continue selling that, you can't, if the PFAS is in it, there are gonna be limitations on it.
okay.
So you have to go to another level and deal with it a different way.
I just wondered, now, another thought is if we mixed it and diluted it with tree, with shrubbery type stuff, I'm just wondering if that, diluting it would break it down enough to where it would be a less potent quantity. If you could mix it with, where you're doing like. Mulch. If you could mix it with mulch or anything and break it down to where it wouldn't be so concentrated.
I think if you get to that point, you're no longer, we're now in the ET, business.
Yeah,
And there's pretty stringent regulations on them. It's not to say that we couldn't,
oh,
but I think that's a whole nother operation that
okay.
we don't have any capability for
No,
at this
no.
point.
Sure.
But
We could look in that.
if you could blend it, I think that would be cheaper. I mean, because I work in incineration, it's darn expensive. Yeah, unless you had a free fuel,
Right.
We need to tap into the Mountain Fuel gas line down there.
Yeah, I think the major
But then-
takeaway is,
But you're still emitting, so that's the problem. You're emitting. So I'm just thinking if there's any way to treat it, that you would either dilute it and blend it to where it lowers the level, to where it doesn't want to break down and go into the groundwater, or mix it with something else that would encapsulate it, to where it wouldn't break down and go into the groundwater. So, anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next month's board meeting, March 13th. Does anybody have any conflict with March 13th?
No.
Okay, so we don't need to make a motion on that. Okay, Andrew, You're gonna talk about our conferences coming up?
Yeah, if you look at the insert there, I just want to point out there was some miscommunication on how many nights these were, and so the cost has come down on the rural water users, and the WEAU. So rather than, on the rural water, rather than $19.11 per person, it is gonna be $15.93 per person. Water users, rather than $1,106, it's gonna be $995 person. And then the WAU, rather than 1676, it'll be 1286
I've got 1431.
on WAU. That's the UFG,
Oh,
that one
excuse
can stay
me.
there, yeah.
What's the new number?
1286.
That's
These-
quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, these are obviously approximate because a lot of the conferences haven't even put out their actual costs for what they're gonna charge us for signing up, but those are off of the numbers last year's, which
Okay.
some of them change maybe $10, $15, but usually they don't change a whole lot. These lists of people that are attending, I got with the managers, and these are who they recommended that are in need of CEUs and other trainings that will be beneficial for their staffing.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
And of course, if the board wants to attend any of these, please let us know and we'll make accommodations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty tied up then. What was the cost on the UGFOA in St. George? April 1st, April 3rd?
That one's staying at 1431.
Okay.
That was the correct amount of nights.
Okay.
And then the AWWA, or that one, it's just in Sandy, so there's
Okay.
no travel.
Okay. Okay, you okay with that?
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the training and safety items. Rural Water, February 24th to 28th. Dixie Center, St. George, water users, March 17th to March 19th. Dixie Center, St. George. UGFOA, April 1st, April 3rd. Dixie Center, St. George. AWWA, mid-year, April 11th, 2025, Sandy. And WEAU, April 22nd to the 25th, Dixie Center, St. George.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, do you want to make a motion or should I? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to take a brief recess immediate following meeting and closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares, pending or reasonable intimate litigation, and collective bargaining purposes pursuant to Utah Code Annual 52-4-204 through 205.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is seconded. Aye.
Aye.
At 11:33.
Oh,
Okay, we're good.
good. Here. Okay, Leo,
We're good.
we on? Okay. It's 12:59. I'd like to make a motion to close the closed and reopen the public board meeting.
I'll second that.
It's been motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Anything we need to? I don't think so. You want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. It's been motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.